This episode of the Dr. Coffee podcast is proudly sponsored by Money in Medicine. Money in Medicine is a financial platform specifically for medical doctors like yourself. So if you are in practice, in government, looking to find out more if you are adequately covered, if you are on track for retirement, how can you save on taxes? Do you have medical malpractice? Go check us out on www.moneyinmedicine.co.za. Check us out on social media, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and let us help you plan the plan.
Welcome to the Dr. Coffee podcast. Today we're joined in studio by our social media queen, Dr. Mphambukeli, as well as our guest, Dr. Taz, the people's doctor. Welcome.
Thank you.
Today we're going to be talking about a hot topic at the moment, which is the fact that more than 800 ex-community service doctors are sitting unemployed, and that this pool of talent is waiting for a job, basically. So, Knox, I'm going to hand it to you to lead in with our questions to our guest today.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored and privileged to be here. Dr. Taz, welcome. I have followed you on social media for a hot minute, and I think you're the perfect person as being considered the people's doctor, as someone who can give us insight and your take, being a doctor already, as to what is going on with the unemployment. What do you feel about it? What are your experiences thus far? But before we go and begin, just like Dr. Coffee fashion, we love to ask you, where did you study? And where did you do your internship, community service, and if you are doing anything currently?
Okay, so I'm originally from Cape Town, but did my med school at Wits University. Took a little bit longer than expected, but finally finished that. Then did 2 years internship at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. Love that hospital.
Really?
Oh my goodness. People say I have Stockholm Syndrome, but I'm telling you, that is the place you want to go for internship. And then community service in a rural district hospital in Limpopo called George Masebe Hospital.
Okay. Now, the reason that you're called the people's doctor, okay, because some people might underappreciate. Anyone can call themselves anything on Instagram these days, but you actually have a backstory. Do you mind telling us the highlighted version or the short story of why you are the people's doctor?
Yes, I love the story. So just to make it short, end of 6th year, I had thought all my fees were paid up because I had a bursary at that time, a sponsor, correct. Wrote my final exam only for Wits to call me and say, sorry, you have an outstanding amount of money left. And I said, sorry, what do you mean? And they're like, oh, no, you should be checking your fee statement. So I check it, and there's for nearly 500,000 Rand outstanding. I lost my mind.
Yeah.
And I was stuck between a rock and a hard place because my family can't afford to give me 500,000 Rand. I don't have 500,000 Rand. I don't even know how this accumulated. Yeah. So it seems that for 4th year, 5th year, and 6th year, my sponsor didn't come through. They didn't pay anything, and it just accumulated to 500,000 Rand.
And so, people wondering, how do you rack up 500,000 Rand? That's residence accommodation,
yes,
tuition, all of that,
correct,
which up to that point you thought had been paid
correct,
for. Yeah.
Because Wits didn't call me, or the university didn't call me and say, look, you can't continue the year because you have an outstanding amount. No one told me anything.
Yeah.
And then I remembered being the 9th of December, my son's birthday, and sitting there getting this news and thinking I was so close.
Sure.
So close to changing my son's life, so close to changing my parents' life and my family's life, because I'm a first-generation medical doctor. And I was so close, and then this happened. And I remember bawling my eyes out and thinking, how did I come this far, only to come this far? And my husband looked at me and said, this is not the time. And I said, what do you mean? He says, this is not the time to have self-pity, stand up. And I said, I can't stand up. This is it for me. And he says, it's only it if you believe that it's it. And then he left and he went to work. And I was just sitting there thinking, he's so rough. And I called him, I said, you don't understand what's going on. And he says, but I understand you. And I said, whew. So I sat and thought, what do I do? I didn't tell my parents about this. I didn't tell anybody. And then it just occurred to me, and I said, I have a community online. And I put out a video. I recorded it once, and I didn't even look at it again. I just recorded and put it out. And my phone blew up. And on the video, just to give you context, all I said was, look, this is my predicament. I need to raise funds in less than 24 hours, otherwise I won't graduate.
Sure.
Guys?
They gave you a 24-hour ultimatum.
Yes.
Sure.
Because they gave me a 24-hour ultimatum, and they said no, they need a whole week to draw up the graduation list, so they can't wait until graduation. And then I went to social media, and in less than 24 hours, this is the crazy part, in less than 24 hours, 500,000 was raised and more. So yes, so it was like 550,000. And I had to appeal to everyone on social media, like, guys, just stop.
It's enough now.
Yes, and the beauty of that is I see the 50,000 rands, I see the 10,000 rands,
Sure.
but there were people depositing 20 rand.
Sure.
And 30 rand, and that broke my heart because that's probably their last 20 rand. But they were like, but we believe in you. And after that, I said, okay, now I'm the people's doctor, because the people in South Africa, they allowed me to become a doctor. So when I say I'm a public servant, I really am.
It's awesome.
Yes.
I love that. And just on that, what made you want to become a doctor in the first place? Because I think having the community aspect, but having your ambition and your, what is it about being a doctor that said that's where I'm going as a career?
So I never thought I'd be a doctor. I never thought I could attain anything outside of maybe working in retail or... Yes, that was where my ambition ended, because I grew up in a space where if you dream, it's okay, but tomorrow you need to wake up because reality is going to hit. There is no money. You cannot further your studies. For you to even get to matric and pass, it's well done. So when I fell pregnant at the age of 15, my son was in the NICU, or the neonatal ICU, for 3 months. And I remember going there and being terrified because I'm this 15-year-old and I'm surrounded by these moms that know how to breastfeed and they're just moving like moms, but I'm this little kid and I'm sitting next to an incubator with my son and he's an 800 grammer and I'm terrified. I don't know how to breastfeed this little creepy looking 800 grammer. He really was creepy because he was small. And
Taz, was there a lot of judgment there? Did you feel that people were judging you? And does that translate to the current situation where people are looking at you as a doctor that's unemployed? Do you feel like there's judgment, like you must have done something to lead to this?
Interesting question. So I think I'm going to answer that in two different parts. So when I fell pregnant, I only found out I was pregnant when I was 6 months.
Okay.
And the moment that became news to the community, it was so taboo. I would go to school wearing big, like baggy clothes and come home and just sit at home because I couldn't walk outside because everyone was like, yes, she thought she was that girl. She went to a Model C school. Look at her now. And there was so much judgment. So I couldn't enjoy my pregnancy. And even when my son was born, I couldn't embrace him like my own. So my mom almost took him as hers. So then when we go to the mall, it's kind of like her child and then me. So people accepted that situation. With the unemployment,
as a doctor, you know, especially somebody who's got a foundation as the people's doctor, you've built up almost like a brand online as the people's doctor. Now you're facing the situation of not having employment for who knows how long. Do you feel like people are like, there's any kind of judgments towards you? Do you feel like people misunderstand the circumstances?
So people, not necessarily people, not my community.
Sure.
And I'm very specific with that because I'm very transparent with my community.
Sure.
But I do feel the general public they're not very clued up as to what the situation is. Yeah. And because of that, whatever they hear on a news outlet, they kind of take that and run with it. Sure. I've had many people on my social media, especially after the video that went viral, there's so many people that don't follow me. They're like, it's you doctors that don't want to work in rural areas. And just on that topic, I worked in a rural hospital just last year.
Myself too.
Exactly. And they couldn't retain me because there were no posts. There was no funding.
100%.
Or they would have loved to have kept you on, but there's now a new crop of interns and compsters that they have to place, that they are legally obliged to. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I want to, this for me is a very emotional topic because as you know, I'm also post-com serve. And I just feel like we've been through so much, especially brown people.
Yes.
We've been through so much into just getting into medicine. Simon, we know you have an amazing story as well. Into getting into medicine, right? Fighting battles, financial battles, family sacrifices, all these things. And you get in and you're finally working. I'm an intern. There's money coming through. This is fabulous. I can uplift my family and my community. And then ComServe is finished and now I have no job. So how do you reconcile that experience of, I just went through the most to just get here. Now I'm here and I'm still going through the most.
Sure.
You don't reconcile it. You stand up and say something needs to change. You need to be the change. That's it. I think because of what I've been through, there's nothing in me. There's no fiber that I'm made up of that says, it's okay. We'll see what happens. I cannot.
Yeah.
I cannot for the life of me. And I think to say that we can reconcile it excuses the systemic failure. It excuses that it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should reconcile. I don't think we should be okay with it. So that's just to answer your question. You can't reconcile it because it's unfair.
Yeah.
Well, what brought us to this position? Because if you look at like the history, right? Obviously, South Africa is trying to strengthen a failing health system. That really, a lot of the solutions are simply to have more hands, to have more doctors doing more things. So one of the things that has happened is over the last 10 years or so, graduating classes from medical school have gotten bigger and bigger. And we've got a new medical school that's originating in the Northwest soon. And we've got Cuban-trained doctors and all of these efforts made to raise up more doctors. And so the pool of interns, which then becomes the pool of ComServes, has grown substantially. I mean, we all graduated in the last couple of years, so we are benefactors of that in the sense that or beneficiaries, I should say, in the sense that we've all got our place in medicine while this process is happening. But then instead of being able to hold on to those people, the government is in a position now where they can only use funding to bring in those people that are doing internship and ComServe now. And they're leaving hundreds of doctors stranded because no one wants to hire somebody who's straight out of ComServe with little experience, or that's the situation. And at the same time, they have to put these people through internship and ComServe. So every single year, it seems like this is a growing problem.
It's like a backlog of doctors, essentially.
And as we've said before, it shouldn't catch anyone by surprise. Because from the time that you register as a medical student, the HPCSA and the Departments of Health know how many doctors are going to be graduating from every medical school. They know at least a few months in advance, this is how many interns you're expecting. This is how many community service doctors you're expecting. This is how many post-ComServe doctors you're expecting. And so no one can say like, oh, well, they couldn't have seen this coming.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think the surprising thing is a lot of us as ComServes, we probably knew about the unemployment situation probably in the last year or two, but it's actually been going on for quite some time, at least 5 to 6 years.
Sure.
So my thing is, with this backlog of doctors, like, what is the solution? Because it's easy to say, yeah, something needs to be done. But we've got numbers, we've got hospitals. Statistics say it's 0.3% or 0.3 doctors per 1,000 patients. So
is it 0.3?
0.33.
Okay, yes, because it's one doctor for every 3,000 patients or something, which is wild.
Which is insane.
So here's a hot take.
Yeah.
Yes.
What if the NHI is the solution to this?
I dare challenge you then and say the NHI in a different, more established country with the infrastructure, probably. But we have not even, we don't even have the infrastructure. So I don't even think I can even entertain that thought just yet because we don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So we've had previous conversations on the podcast about NHI where we've said that one of the things that you need to make NHI work is an economy.
Yes.
But a lot of post-ComServe doctors, before they get a medical officer post in public, actually do locum shifts in private or do ED shifts if they're fortunate enough to do ED shifts in a private hospital. And to anyone who thinks that, oh, if I go to a private ED, I'm going to get much better treatment than if I went to, say, Barra or Joburg Gen, you know, the real reality or the wake up call for them is, by the way, those doctors would love to be in Barra or Joburg Gen, but they're working there.
And I dare venture on and say, if you come to the trauma or the ED at Barra, you're going to survive. I dare say that.
You're going to have really competent doctors who are all there doing the thing. That if you take the ED shift from the beginning of January or February in a private hospital, they're literally like 1 month out of concert.
Exactly.
I actually want to take this opportunity because Simon is currently in his ComServe.
Yes.
And also with you, what were your preparations with this thought at the back of the mind that probably I'm going to be unemployed after? And Simon, currently, as a follow-up question, what are you currently
what am I doing to prepare? Well, I mean, did you prepare? Did you prepare
Yes,
at all?
I did every course under the sun. Sure. I asked my mentor, can you please help me develop the best CV? Yeah. Can we sit and just do mock interviews? I did it all. I applied everywhere. Yeah. And I dare say that I thought I did enough. Because in med school, they make you think that the only way out is in to a government institution, and that's the only way you can specialize, and it's the only way you can make a life, and that's it. I think that idea is implanted in us simply so that we can be slaves to the system. Controversial, I know. But we then are stuck. When the government doesn't offer us what they said we should go for, then what? Yeah. So if I was equipped with a financial background, business background, I knew how to maneuver NGOs. I knew that I could come and say, I'm a doctor, I can leverage that. Let me go to corporates. Let me sit with the CEO and say, how can we make this happen? Now I'm only thinking of that because I'm forced to
pivot a bit.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think what you're saying there about, we were raised within a system, I don't know if it's necessary that it's designed to keep you in the system, but you're speaking to people who are there. So, when you're in medical school or when you internship in ComServe, you're speaking to people who are in that system and it's working for them because they are tenured, they have specialized, and they've chosen that life where they're saying, like, I actually enjoy teaching, so I'm going to stay at an academic hospital and I'm going to raise up registrars. But the landscape is changing. So they'll often say, when we have guests on the podcast and we'll say, what's the road to specialization? They'll say something like, well, 10 years ago, it was a lot easier to get a registrar post. So they are cognizant of it, but it's kind of like the same way as I'm cognizant of what it's like to be Knox. I can hear Knox, I can talk to Knox, I can understand a little bit about Knox, but I'll never understand Knox until somebody can do a brain transplant and put your mind in my body. So in the same way that they are saying that because that's what they understand. Sure. Okay. And what the podcast has started to do recently is we've tried to explore some of those non-traditional avenues in medicine where you start saying, like, okay, maybe you don't want to be a neurologist. Maybe you don't want to be a cardiologist, but you still want to use medicine for good. So what is it that you're able to do? And I think that, building to your point, this has forced you to say, okay, if I can't do this right now, what are my other options? Okay, and I have seen that you've been starting to do some other stuff on social media. We won't mention too much about Care Ready, but it's awesome that you're still using your medical career to advance good and work in the clinical space and stuff. Knox, you were asking about, what am I thinking about? Yeah. So I think this is a good time to talk about the fact that community service is your first opportunity to really build experience in a subspec. And in that regard, I'm very blessed because I think I know what I would like to do, and I'm actually getting experience in that. And it is a niche field. But now, let's say, okay, I want to be in orthopedics, right? So I'm getting great exposure in orthopedics at Clarksthorpe, which is an academic hospital. I'm getting fantastic exposure. Yeah. There will be somebody who is a far better surgeon and would be a far better orthopedic surgeon than me, but they've been posted to Ghanisa CHC out in rural Northwest.
Clinics.
Now they're getting zero orthopedic exposure. They're referring to me, like, Doc, what should I do about this? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, what are you going to do for them? Yeah. And then post ComServe, that person doesn't really have, they might have done every course under the sun, but they don't have that cutting time and that experience, which is the way I feel about ComServe, is that it's almost like a lottery.
Yeah.
So where you are posted can have such a huge impact, because if you get posted to a barra, you're now in their ears. Hi, I need a job next year, and somebody can say that's a fantastic medical officer, but I don't know that there might be 20 medical officers better that are just out in a CHC. So part of my preparation is where I'm doing ComServe. Sure. I'm hoping that stands me in good stead, but in this conversation, I'm wide awake to the fact that come 12 months from now, I might be sitting unemployed. So that salary that I'm getting now, I need to start.
Of course. I just wanted to also go to I think we would do this conversation at not having justice to the conversation if we don't speak about mental health. I think as medical doctors, we know we have the highest rates of suicide in any profession. Now imagine having that, plus the thought that post-ComServe, I'm not working. Taz, what do you think it does to a person's mental health?
So I'll bring it back home to me. So I think it was around June, July. This is after we've applied. This is after there was a short list of 40 people for one post. This is after posts were frozen, after you go for the interview. After all of this, I remember sitting in Limpopo. This is even before I had a major surgery. I sat and I was so defeated. And not just for myself, but for my family. And they depend on me. When I say that, I mean they won't have a place to stay if I don't work. They won't have food to eat if I don't work. And I sat there so depressed. And my husband would look at me and just say, what's going on? And I said, no, there's like next year, and I'm worried about the unemployment. And he's always so positive, like, I'll take care of you. And I said, but I still need something for myself. I need something to look forward to. I need purpose. So for me, I feel the purpose was, I was robbed of purpose. I knew that I wanted to help my community. I knew I wanted to be a doctor and practice, but I couldn't. And that put me into a pit of depression. And I just became a shell of myself. And I think during the last 3 months, I could feel that even when I was in a consultation room, my mind was thinking, next year I won't be able to do this.
Did it take you back to the 9th of December all over again?
Yes. Even worse this time, because
you qualified.
I qualified. Yeah. And I had this idea of, if you're a doctor, you won't be unemployed. Yes, you're set for life.
People say that. They say, get into medicine because then you'll have a career that no one can take away from you.
Yeah. All of us got into it.
That's a lie.
I'm going to help people. The other thought was that this is a career that is in demand.
Yes.
That's what we were told. Medicine is in demand. I remember when I was in matric, you see the top 3 careers.
Yes.
And I think it was like engineering, accounting, and medicine. And I was like, yeah, medicine is where it's at for me. And to be sitting in a position where I'm also fortunate, currently I'm locuming, but the whole of Jan I was sitting at home. And that month of Jan, as beautiful as it was to say, I'm resting, but at night,
I was
just like, where am I going to even begin? Because my application process, like you said, I was also in Limpopo, started already in July. I started applying for jobs in July. I have a book, and I can't wait to share the testimony. I have a book where I write down all the posts that I think I've applied to at least 50 posts.
Sure.
Yeah. Of which I only got probably 4 interviews of which I haven't gotten any response.
So help me to understand, right? So July seems really early to be doing interviews. Are these interviews with public hospitals? Are they interviews in private, a bit of both? And how do these interviews go about? Because that's already 6 months in advance almost that you're starting to look for what you're going to be doing the following year.
Yeah. So most of the places were public posts, because I was told, I also had a mentor who was just like, just go for it. If at least you get it, you can tell them I can start in 3 months' time and try to figure it out. At least your foot is in the door. And so mostly, and I did apply for some private, but at that time I hadn't completed enough courses to apply, because, like you said, it's ACLS, it's PALS, it's also, if you can, plus minus a diploma. So it was that whole process. And pretty much it's just, it's quite, for me at this point, it has been very disheartening, because I put my best foot forward. I was told, if you apply early as much as you can, you'll definitely secure at least one thing. And to be in a position where, you, like you said, you have to be creative at this point in time and be like, should I even start my own surgery? What's happening? It's very difficult to come to terms with that. And I think another thing we don't appreciate as well is, like, I think one of you mentioned it, is that when someone's already in the system or in that particular hospital, let's say in metropolitan areas that you might want to work in, they already have the experience there. They can already, say, hi, you know how I work, can I just, we don't have that. I mean, I did my ComServe in Limpopo, which I feel already was a sacrifice on my part because my family was here. But I said, goody, let's do this. I'm going to serve my community. I'm going to make a time out of it, and I'm going to come home and my time will be rewarded. That's that's what I was thinking.
So maybe one of the solutions then, because we also were saying, how do we bring solutions to it? Yeah. Maybe one of the solutions is that people who've done their community service out in rural get preference when it comes to coming back to one of those academic hospitals, so that they too can get the time to build up a diploma. Like, it should be mandatory that if you've had a year where let's say you were in pediatrics, right? So let's say you've had your year in pediatrics, you've got your diploma in child health. It should be mandatory that you not be given first pick on that post for post ComServe. Yeah. How about something like that?
That is a solution. I think I'm going to hand over to you, Taz, very soon. I think for me, what would be a nice solution is that the HPCSA updates the accreditation for hospitals.
Okay.
The hospital that I worked in is not accredited for any of the diplomas that I want to do, but I had an incredible training in pediatrics. I can stand in any hospital. So I think just updating that so that people in rural can also have an opportunity to do their diplomas would be amazing.
I dare venture on and say that if it's just a preference thing, we're still not creating more posts. 100%. So we're just shifting, but then that person just could be unemployed.
Because then that person who's got their diploma, they're sitting at home.
Unemployed.
Yeah.
All 900 of us are qualified.
That's well said. That's a good point.
And just to add, everyone says 800. There's 1,024 members in our unemployment WhatsApp group. Yeah, so far more than 800.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and let's not forget that it's also including other MOs who are now maybe a year or two into unemployment.
Yes.
Not just post-ComServe.
Yeah, so it's not. So the point is that medicine is never a guarantee.
Yes.
So then let's talk about the public and private partnerships here, because I mean, I mentioned NHI, and that seems like an unpopular opinion, but we're saying that, like, it's impossible to become a pediatrician without being a medical officer in pediatrics for a time, but it's also impossible to get a post as a medical officer in private with a special interest in pediatrics. What if it was possible? The HPCSA might need to shuffle some regulation around in order for this to happen. But what if it was possible for you now, post ComServe, to go and work in a pediatrician's office, not as a lead pediatrician, but to help? You're not saying I'm a pediatrician, but you're saying I'm a doctor working in pediatrics, or I have a special interest in pediatrics. And is it possible for that to happen? Because I don't know that it is. I don't know that somebody can say, I've got my diploma in child health, let me go work as a hospital pediatrician. I think you can work as a GP and see children, but I don't think you're able to work in a hospital, which is ultimately where there's space for jobs and where people need help.
I think once again it goes back to that the government posts is actually where training needs to take place. Why I believe in that is because that's where we see the biggest burden in our healthcare system, our people, what they're suffering with. I'm not saying that private is not that, but we also know that most tertiary hospitals are government hospitals. So it makes sense that if that is the only channel that you can get your qualifications through, that it's strengthened. And we need to get in there. And once again, the issue here, and we can say it as plainly, is money.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need money. Yeah. And money, unfortunately, is not going to come from the HPCSA. It's not going to come from our own pockets. It's coming from our government. That is where the money comes from. That's where our posts are created. So that's where the change needs to be. And we are just shedding light on the situation based on where we are as medical doctors. But it goes higher up and higher up.
Exactly.
And higher up.
So, there's two ways to make more money, is to either actually get more money or to use the money that we have more effectively.
100%. I think that's where it's at.
And litigation and sorting out, errors that have been made medico-legally is a huge part of the health department's budget. So I dare put this forward as an opinion. If the mistakes is proportional to the fact that you've got more interns and more ComServes doing more things, it stands to reason that you have more experienced doctors coming in, that your litigation would go down because there's less medico-legal issues. So is there not maybe incentive to say, I'm going to hire some more of these post-ComServe medical officers because they're going to make less mistakes, we're going to get sued less, and then that's going to save us the money to pay for their posts. Is that a gamble do you think government should take?
I don't think it's a gamble. I think that's great. Because if we look at medical legal issues, it's the seniors. I don't wanna be the devil's advocate here, but it's because they're overworked.
So you're saying that
you're
saying that the seniors that are overworked are creating more issues?
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. I don't want to play the devil's advocate, but I can't see a post-ComServe in Barra. They're not going to put you, and they're not going to say, oh, go and just do a case on your own. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. Senior registrars and junior registrars are so hungry to learn. So they're the ones cutting. If you're just a grade 1, Emma, you just sit there and you take history. And I'm not just saying it's only on them. I'm saying we need to shed light on the fact that they work 36-hour shifts and are expected not to make a mistake.
Yeah.
But if that understaffing is addressed and we said, okay, let's put post-ComServes there, more interns, it will lighten the load. They don't have to work 36-hour shifts anymore. Sure. And that, I feel,
improves patient care.
Yes.
100%. I think also let's address the elephant in the room. I believe our country has enough money.
Oh, 100%.
The question is, where is the money going? So I feel like if we are going to address the money issue, unfortunately, it's beyond my scope, it's beyond our scope probably here. But the mainstay is proper redirection of funds to our people's needs, which is healthcare.
100%.
Period.
This episode of the Dr. Coffee podcast is proudly sponsored by Money and Medicine. Money and Medicine is a platform with over 10 years experience dedicated to educating and empowering medical professionals to make informed and calculated financial decisions. To learn more about Money and Medicine, go to our website at www.moneyandmedicine.co.za.
But that's a systemic thing, right? I mean,
what can we do?
I'm working in Klerksdorp, and there's literally signs on the street poles that says "Pay your municipal accounts," because there's so many people not paying their municipal accounts, and then they're complaining about potholes. Yeah. So it's like, well, if everyone just did what they're supposed to, things would work.
But then you're also taking tax from us.
Yeah. So what about the topic of supernumeraries? Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know what a supernumerary is, I'm just going to explain. So registrar training is when somebody is specializing in medicine to go into becoming a pediatric oncologist or pediatric surgeon, or I don't know why I'm focusing on pediatrics, but anyways, you're doing your registrar training to become qualified as a specialist. A supernumerary is when another country's government pays for their doctor to come and get their training here in South Africa, pays for their tuition, pays for their accommodation, maybe even pays them a salary. But that is somebody who's occupying a training post that is not ultimately going to serve South Africa. So I know many people who are supernumeraries, so this is not in any way to disparage or hate on them. But are these people taking jobs from South African doctors?
Can I answer that?
Go for it.
There are no jobs to take. You know what I mean? Like, even if that post was never open to us, if it was, it's probably going to be frozen because they're going to say they can't fund it. So there's a government saying, look, we can fund our people because our government's not standing up. Yeah. So I don't think it's as black and white as them taking our posts because our government's not paying them. Yeah. It's not a post that was open for us.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think it's a little bit
nuanced. That's a nuanced answer, and I appreciate that you've come at it with that balance to say, well, like, that was a post that was never actually for a medical officer or post-ComServe.
Exactly.
But I think also just remembering that those posts will probably not even be enough to cover the 1,000 plus. Maybe it might be 100 and something.
Yes.
So I don't think that it would make a huge difference in that sense. And also, every country in the world takes on, for example, Cuba took us. I know my partner got qualified in China, you know, so
Sure.
people, it's a worldly thing. It's a common practice for people to be able to go wherever they choose to study.
That's a good view, because remember that there's hundreds of people who go into Cuba and China every year to do their medical degrees there, and those countries might be feeling like, oh, well, I would be in med school if it wasn't for you. Sure. I wonder if there's any country in the world that's experiencing like no people, like a net exodus. Hey, there must be some countries where they're like, we don't have enough doctors because they're all going elsewhere to study and not coming back.
Yeah. So Taz, I just wanna, what is your hope moving forward for our ComServes doctors? What do you hope to see at least in the next year to 5 years? What are the changes?
I hope to see us become a lot more empowered, a lot more independent in our thinking. I'll elaborate. So I wish I knew the scale of this reality before.
100%.
I think I'd sharpen my skills a lot more. I'd go to leadership seminars. I'd take a diploma in finance or business, just something outside of medicine. And why I say that is because, like right now, I had to pivot and think non-clinical. Let's go corporate. There's money in corporate.
Sure.
So if corporate has money, they can offer free healthcare, NGOs. So I wish I had known that before. So my hope is that we don't solely rely on a system that's inevitably going to fail us. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm saying let's be realistic. So being mindful of that, when you're doing your courses, also take a course in finance or business. Do research on NGOs. Reach out to NGOs during your ComServe and say, you're looking for a doctor? I'm here. And we need to learn how to not be passive. We need to learn how to take control of a situation. I know it's not as easy as that, but if you just take one step every day, you're going to get somewhere. A lot of people were saying, Taz, just putting out a video is not going to do anything. It's just awareness. Awareness falls on deaf ears. I have CEOs coming to me and say, let's sit down. I said, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's see how corporate and the private sector can stand up and employ these doctors while we wait for government. So to answer your question, my hope is that we empower ourselves as holistic beings, not just doctors. We are leaders. You know, we can make a difference. So if we can believe, rather not empower, I feel we need to believe that we are those people. We need to believe that we can sit across the CEO and say, so I know you have money. How can we start an NGO?
Yeah.
Read around how you can start your own thing. So that's my hope, that doctors just learn how to be a lot more holistic and a lot more realistic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think for me, just to add on, is more conversations about the issues surrounding medicine.
Yes.
I think people think medicine is like this enclosed system where doctors are happy being paid, we're considered the leaders of the community, when there are so many issues outside of just unemployment. And I think my future hope is that more of these issues are vocalized and attended to, so that if you have healthy doctors, you're going to have healthy patients.
Yes.
Honestly, that is my mental health of doctors. I'm not saying that other career paths shouldn't be taken care of, but the statistics speak, and we need to give mental health care and awareness to our doctors in 100%. South Africa.
I think my hope is that we would find a solution that serves South Africa as well as the doctors, because I'm a South African, not a South Afrikaans, and I love my country. And I know that every single unemployed doctor sitting at home also wants to make a difference, wants to help better South Africa. And as an intern and a ComServe, you get a taste. You get a taste of what it's like to make a difference. You get those rewarding patients, and to suddenly not have that, I think, leads to what you were saying, like the mental health, besides obviously the concerns about how you're going to pay bills, because the bills don't stop. Those debit orders don't disappear just because you're unemployed out of sympathy, like, oh, we'll go easy on you. So I think what I'd like is for there to be a solution, and it's going to take more than just one angle. I think that it's going to have to take private and public agreement and cohesion. I think that we've got a very, very disparate society that we need to pull people together. And I think that this might be, again, I'm going to come back to it, might be a hot take, but I think that the NHI has something to play here in funding more posts in public. I don't know how that's going to work. And you alluded to the fact that if things aren't working now, and now you add another cog to the system, how is that going to help improve it if you can't fix what's happening now?
Treating symptoms and not causes.
Yeah. So I think all of us have been a little bit cautiously hopeful and optimistic in the sense that we believe that solutions are possible. And I think that we've done a good job of talking about the current status quo. I think both of you have offered exceptional insight into the experience of junior doctors, and even just as a warning, a caution to those coming after us, that this is something to be cognizant of.
100%. And just to add, there's this talk or this notion that it's so easy to just move abroad. Oh, just go overseas.
Yeah, there's no jobs here. Go work in Ireland. And then Ireland freezes posts.
Exactly. And even before that,
The preparation.
Like, I spoke to a doctor that went to Ireland and said it costed her about 75,000, just like getting her paperwork and everything in order.
Sure.
And if you hadn't prepared for that, and you just find yourself like us now, I don't see how. And it's so easy to say, oh no, during ComServe, I had a post on, a comment under my post that said, you guys should have known this was going to happen. You should have saved an internship in ComServe. I dare say, how can I save if my whole salary is going to black tax?
Well,
that's
to
coming
save
from
an extent
a...
where you can live for how many months without working?
Taz, that's coming from a place of ignorance where they're thinking that every single person is a 25 or 26-year-old with no responsibilities that's living in DQ that costs them 1,000 Rand a month. I always come back to this. The first month that I was an intern, people were saying, oh, what are you going to spend your salary on? And I said, school fees.
Of course.
I've got 3 children to educate. And, yes, I can send them to a government school. I choose to send them to a private school. But that's a cost. And even if you had zero costs, you still have to eat and pay for electricity and internet and things like that. So this whole thing of like, oh, well, you guys should have known it was coming. I don't buy that at all.
No, same.
Cool.
Thanks for the conversation, ladies. It's been absolutely awesome to share some studio time with you. I think that this is just the start of the conversation. People are welcome to drive the conversation in the comments. We might have a part 2, Taz, so be ready. So thank you very much for your time appearing on the Dr. Coffee podcast, and thank you, Knox, as well.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me. I've been following you guys. You guys literally helped me throughout my community service in Limpopo. Like, I'll just listen to you guys every day and think, I want to go back to Joburg. But you guys have created such an amazing platform that no matter where you are, in Limpopo, overseas, it feels like I'm in the room with you guys.
Awesome.
So you've created a family and a community, but also said, come sit with us, let's educate you. And I just love your platform so much. And you guys are definitely making a difference. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Taz.
That was great.